In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful, whatever we are, our first few years of life has a lot to do with it. Whatever a person, a human being becomes, it is the result of the early years training of a child. This training does not necessarily mean that she was trained by the best trainers in the world or the worst trainers in the world. Either a person learns certain things automatically, or obviously by the hard work, by the handling, and not by the mishandling of the parents. It is the handling of the parents which works as a training course for a child. A child, according to the expert, learns and adopts a way of life, a direction in the life during the first 6 years of their life. Later on, she keeps traveling on the same direction, but the direction was decided by the first few years of the life of a child. The training the parents is obviously extremely important. It must not be underestimated. It matters, and it matters a lot. It does not necessarily mean that the parents were PhDs, they were highly educated, or they were uneducated. It may be the child of an uneducated person, parents could supersede the child, the young boy or girl of a person who has got the PhD. It does not mean at all that education is unimportant. Absolutely not. Education matters a lot. Matters a lot. Dear friends and fellows, training, and training. Training is important and really important. Here in our society, unfortunately, overwhelming majority of the people were not trained properly during the early years of their life, unfortunately. Even in the developed world too, the ratio of properly trained children is not very high. Or at least we can safely say that reasonably good number of children does not become necessarily a good human being, even in the developed societies. But as far as society is concerned, obviously, where the ignorance and irresponsibility matters, ignorance and irresponsibility is with the maximum number of people, unfortunately. There are fewer people who succeed in getting the good training. The child oneself cannot choose their parents, cannot choose the trainers, and usually the parents are not well educated, not well trained as well. How can they impart a good training to their children? What is the purpose of all this talk? The purpose of all this talk is that we do need the training. Once we are grown up, once we do understand what is good and what is not so good for us, here too, I think that although we were not having any power or influence over the early age of ours, but once we are grown up, once we become adult, and we are in the 20s, I think we should restart our training. We need to hire the training. We need to, although it has become very easy now. Why? Because the availability of the internet, because of the availability of the smartphone, the computer. Although it needs a bit of money, but it is not very expensive. Anybody can afford it. We can listen to the lectures of the trainer, motivational speakers. Why? Because a lot needs to be done. It was, although the early years training was of extreme importance, we cannot doubt the validity of this thing actually, but it does not mean that we should not be learning whatever we can in the later years of our life, whatever we can live, whatever we can learn during the 20s and 30s and even 40s. As far a human being is concerned, a human being should remain the student for the whole of their life. A human being should remain a student for the whole of their life, not just for the first few years of their life. But although the impact of the training we do get in the later years of life might not be as much deeply ingrained upon our conscious and subconscious mind as the lesson we did learn during the early ages of our life, dear friends and fellows, I think that we should remain a student throughout our life. And if at all we do become a genuine student, I think it will be extremely good for us. And it is really important whether we were highly educated or undereducated. We need to learn the art of life. We need to learn how to become happy and how to stay happy. We need to learn what are our obligations toward the society. We need to know what are our rights, and all of that is education. And we need to get the training. We need to keep getting the training by these motivational speakers, by the trainer throughout our life. And this process of learning, although we are not a child anymore, but it must not discontinue at all. It should rather continue as long as we are alive. If at all we do adopt this attitude, I believe our life will become better, and our life will become much better. Thank you. Jazakallah.